What's happening, sweet angels? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here to welcome you to our fourth and for now final installment in our series on the great Kenny Dorham. Kenny Dorham, of course, is one of the all-time great jazz trumpet players and a man whose name is almost synonymous with underrated. Today we're going to dive into one of my all-time favorite Kenny Dorham records. This is entitled Quiet Kenny. Kenny Dorham recorded this album in November of 1959, came out in 1960, and it features, besides Kenny Dorham, the great Tommy Flanagan on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Art Taylor on drums. If there was one album I could recommend someone who had never heard of Kenny Dorham or was trying to get into Kenny Dorham's music, I would recommend this album, Quiet Kenny. It finds Kenny Dorham in a quartet setting, playing a lot of ballads and standards, as well as a couple of original tunes. The tune that we are going to go over today is an underplayed standard by Willard Robinson entitled Old Folks. You might have heard Miles Davis's arrangement of Old Folks off of Someday My Prince Will Come, but my favorite version of Old Folks comes from Quiet Kenny by Kenny Dorham. And here we can hear Kenny in his element, not only dealing with some of his ingenious harmonic approaches, but also his very beautiful and subtle way of approaching the phrasing on the trumpet, as well as his very ingenious rhythmic approach. So, without further ado, we're going to dive into Kenny Dorham's solo on Old Folks on this exciting episode of Theory with Bob. In our previous Kenny Dorham episodes, I spent a lot of time focusing on KD's ingenious approach to harmony. And there's certainly a lot of that here. But this is a great example of a tune in which Kenny Dorham can really apply his beautiful trumpet sound and his very delicate approach to articulation, as well as his extremely diverse approach to rhythm. In this solo, you're going to hear him playing a lot of triplets, some very clever triplet figures, as well as you can really hear his approach to swing, where he transitions between sort of a more smooth, straight eighth kind of swing and a very bouncy triplet kind of feel. So I want you to pay attention as you're listening to this solo to the many different ways that Kenny uses rhythm in this solo, because it's a really ingenious approach to being able to create a very diverse rhythmic approach to this otherwise what might be kind of a walking ballad feel. All right, gang, so we'll go over the specifics after the recording. If you want to check out this transcription in either B flat or E flat rather than concert pitch, we've got the PDFs are linked down in the description below, so you can find a copy of this transcription. And if otherwise you're just dealing in concert pitch, we're going to talk about it in concert pitch. All right, gang, so without further ado, here it is, Kenny Dorham's solo on Old Folks. Alright, while this tune is pretty firmly rooted in E flat major, there's a lot of changes here, and it gives Kenny Dorham a great opportunity to exercise his bebop chops and really navigate these changes in a brilliant way. Now, most of the time he's following the relatively fast-moving changes of the tune, but like in other solos we've gone over, he has a couple of moments where he really lets his harmonic genius shine, and he applies both the kind of altered sound to create tension on the 5 chord, as well as his approach to using what appears to be a sort of tritone substitution. So we're going to go through just about 3 little ideas that he has here that really show that kind of harmonic genius. We're going to start off in about the end of measure 7 of the solo here. And this part is going from an F7 to an F minor 7, finally resolving to the B flat 7, which gets us back to the top of the second A section. It sounds like this. So here we can hear Kenny Dorham using the either A flat minor triad, you could look at it, or you could look at it as the flat 13, natural 3, flat 9 of the F7 chord, resolving to the 1 of F minor 7, eventually using a little double neighbor approach to land on the 3rd of B flat 7 on that D there. All right, so you can hear Kenny creating that additional tension with what you could regard as either the altered sound or sort of a tritone substitution using a D flat 7 sound over or rather a B7 sound over an F7, speaking in concert pitch. All right, we're going to move on. There's another couple of ingenious approaches here. Down towards the end of really at the beginning of the bridge here, we have a move that is common for Kenny Dorham, which is to use both the major and the minor 7 on a minor 7 chord. And then Kenny goes on to play what really sounds like an F sharp Dorian or perhaps a B Mixolydian sound. I'm sorry, an E Dorian or A Mixolydian sound over the E flat 7. I can't do it in trumpet key. All right, I'm trying to stay with it. All right, so at the beginning of the bridge, we get this beautiful sound. It goes like this. It uses 2 different devices. They're resolving to the 3rd of A flat major 7, the C. Now here we have this ingenious little approach. Now you can hear both the use of the major 7 and a minor 7 on the B flat minor 7 chord. Using that flat 7, the A flat, to resolve to G, the 3rd of E flat 7. Now, here's where things get really fun. Now he's using this phrase to resolve to the A flat major 7. So we're on an E flat 7 chord, and he's playing what sounds to me really like an E Dorian sound. And it goes like this. And then he uses a little double chromatic neighbor approach to land on the 3rd of A flat major 7. So there, once again, we can hear Kenny Dorham using what might be described as an altered sound on the E flat 7. However, he is using a D natural rather than a D flat in the beginning, which sort of implies that E Dorian sound. Now, in that case, we could regard his use of that E Dorian sound as sort of a tritone substitution, creating a little bit of tension on that E flat 7 chord to resolve to the A flat major 7. Once again, Kenny Dorham proving his harmonic genius in this little phrase. So one more time. And there he lands on the D flat 7 sharp 11 chord, playing some really beautiful stuff to end out that phrase in the bridge. All right, I got one more phrase for you that I think is indicative of Kenny's genius, and it goes like this. We're going to take this right about to the end of the bridge. It goes like this. Resolving, coming down, using that little altered sound to resolve to E to an E flat, finally resolving to the D, which is the 3rd of B flat 7. Another great line by Kenny Dorham. So here in the solo, you can see a lot of KD's ingenious approach to the harmonies. However, what I think makes this solo particularly distinctive and what makes Kenny Dorham such a great player is his use of rhythm and his approach to the horn. I mean, one thing that I haven't really talked about in these videos because we've been focusing on the harmony is Kenny's really unique approach to the trumpet. So I think this is one of the reasons that he might have been a little underrated in a sense, because some other trumpet players like, let's say, Clifford Brown or Freddie Hubbard will have this gigantic kind of bravado in their sound, a certain, let's say, confidence or a certain kind of aggressive approach. Whereas Kenny Dorham tended to have a very delicate approach to his playing. He would single tongue just about everything unless he was playing very fast phrases. And in this particular instance, you can hear the way that he's using this very bouncy approach. It's a very triplet-heavy approach to his rhythms. All right, so you can hear that throughout. He's very much sticking to a rhythmic approach, and you get a very triplet kind of sound in this recording. So I'm going to find a little example here. For example, we have towards the end of the second A section, he's playing mostly triplets, a very bouncy kind of feel, but he can switch between triplets and 16th notes at will to create a really compelling rhythmic approach to playing through this tune. Another thing that Kenny Dorham is known for that I want to bring up in this video, because we didn't get to talk about it in previous videos, is his ability to scoop into notes or bend notes. So in a couple of instances here, you can hear him use that sound. It sounds a little isolated. It sounds a little something like this. You can hear him do things of that nature. So for example, here towards the end of the first A section, we get a phrase that sounds like this. He's using, when he's just scooping into that note a little bit, just creating a little bend into those notes, which is really distinctive of Kenny's playing. It's such a unique part of his approach to the trumpet. You can hear it again in the phrase that I just played a second ago. It sounds like this. There's something about the way that Kenny uses those little scoops that really punctuates his music in a unique way. All right, so as we go through it, you can hear much of this rhythmic approach where he's moving in and out of various 16th note and triplet lines. And one of the things that's really compelling is in the middle of these 16th note lines, he's throwing in these triplets. There's a lot of motion to his rhythm. So I'm going to play a little phrase for you that I think gives an example of not only the 16th notes, but the 16th note triplet within the 16th notes, as well as the way that he really lands down into the eighth notes, into smooth eighth notes at the end of the phrase. So here's a great example, and it sounds like this. All right, and finally, Kenny ends his solo with a combination of a bunch of triplets and then the use of great use of space in his solo, really just using the various chord tones to voice lead from one chord to the other, and ending his solo on a beautiful note. And that sounds like this. So there you can really hear Kenny Dorham's varied approach to rhythm. Kenny Dorham was at heart a bebop trumpet player, but he really pushed the limits of bebop trumpet playing, and he was able to incorporate all these different kind of triplet rhythms and 16th notes into his playing, as well as some very adventurous harmonic approaches. Now, in this particular instance, I would say in transcribing this solo, in many ways the trickiest thing to do was to decide how to notate some of these rhythms, because he's really pushing and pulling a lot of these rhythms in different ways, but his time is perfect. He's always landing exactly where he wants to go. But it's interesting the difference between, for example, a swung eighth note and let's say triplet feel. I mean, those things are often very closely related, but usually you can tell when somebody's doing a swung eighth note. In this case, sometimes it's hard to gauge exactly how to notate some of the rhythms that Kenny Dorham is playing in the solo, but hopefully I was able to properly convey the diverse rhythmic approach that Kenny has on his solo here on Old Folks. All right, gang, we're keeping it short today, but we're just covering the nuance of Kenny Dorham's sound on the trumpet, his approach to the phrasing of the music, and his ingenious approach to rhythm. I think this is a good way to wrap this up. So if you're not familiar, check out Kenny Dorham's Quiet Kenny. This has got a lot of great tunes on it. His original tune, Lotus Blossom, another great standard, My Ideal. Alone Together, Blue Spring Shuffle, which we covered from a different album in a previous video, and Mac the Knife and several others. The rhythm section is unstoppable, and the way that they recorded it is really, I think really lends the proper respect to Kenny Dorham's beautiful sound. All right, gang, I hope you enjoyed our Kenny Dorham transcription series. You might be saying to yourself, hey, Bob, how come you didn't go over any of the Joe Henderson records with Kenny Dorham on there? Well, those are probably Kenny Dorham's most famous appearances on those Joe Henderson records from the 60s, and maybe I'll do a series on just those at some point in the future. It'd be very interesting to cover both Kenny Dorham and Joe Henderson's playing on those records. But for now, I wanted to cover some lesser discussed Kenny Dorham solos that really, I would say, captured his essence. So, if you haven't seen the other ones, you can check out our other videos on Kenny Dorham and transcription series. And if you like this video and you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, you can like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also find us on Patreon if you'd like to support the creation of new videos like this one. I'll be putting all these transcriptions up on the Patreon, as well as some exercises that can be extracted from these solos, as well as some outtake videos and bonus content of various kinds. All right, gang, well, I hope you enjoyed this transcription series. Stick around next week for some more videos on trumpet and jazz, and perhaps some more transcription videos in the near future. All right, gang, I hope you have a wonderful time checking out some music and practicing, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.
Theory with Bob.
All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. We hope it helps in your quest for the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like what we're doing here, you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. And if you'd like to support the creation of new videos like this, you can become a subscriber on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Ridgewood School of Music. There, subscribers will have access to more in-depth follow-up videos, as well as solo transcriptions, various musical exercises, and all kinds of fun stuff. If you'd like to follow me on my musical adventures, you can find me on Instagram at Bob Spellman, and you can follow the Ridgewood School of Music's other social media pages by following the links in the description below. The Ridgewood School of Music is currently accepting new students online or in person in the New York City area. If you're interested in lessons, you can find us at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, or you can send us an email at ridgewoodschoolofmusic@gmail.com, and we can set you up with a great teacher for the instrument and the style of music that you're interested in studying. All right, gang, well, have a wonderful time practicing, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.